making headlines this hour. President Dr. Mohammad Morsi returns to the capital following a multi-island tour of Alif Alif Atoll, where he met with local communities to assess development priorities and reinforce his administration's commitment to inclusive governance. The government intensifies its efforts to document migrant workers residing within the country, with biometric data for 174,152 migrant workers now recorded in a centralized national database. The Minister of Youth Empowerment, Information and Arts, Ibrahim Aswad, reveals over 500 young apprentices have successfully graduated from the National Apprenticeship Program thus far. Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalamu alaikum and welcome to PSM News in English with me, Minha Maroof. President Dr. Mohammad Morsi returns to the capital following a multi-island tour of Alif Alif Atoll, where he met with local communities to assess development priorities and reinforce his administration's commitment to inclusive governance. Over the past 3 days, the president visited Thoddu, Rastu, Ukuras, Mathiveri, Boduforodu, Feridu, Maros and Himandu, accompanied by a ministerial delegation and senior officials from state-owned enterprises. He held consultations with island councils, women's development committees and residents, focusing on the alignment of national initiatives with local needs. Among the key outcomes of the visit was the announcement of Bank of Maldives ATM services for all inhabited islands in the atoll. The measure is expected to improve financial accessibility and streamline banking operations for remote communities. The president also officiated the commencement of police station construction in Malos, Himandu, Feridu and Thoddu, marking a significant expansion of public safety infrastructure. Project launches across multiple sectors were formalized during the tour, with the president presiding over the signing of several agreements. In his meetings with island residents, he outlined the implementation timeline for initiatives scheduled in 2025 and the following year, providing clarity on the government's long-term development agenda. Administrative decisions were also announced, including the formal designation of Ma Faru Lagoon as part of Feridu. The move is intended to enhance jurisdictional coherence and resource management. President Morsi reaffirmed his commitment to preserving and developing Madivaru Finaru for the benefit of Rastu residents and underscored the strategic importance of the airport under construction in Mathiveri, noting its potential to serve both the atoll and the broader national tourism sector. The visit also included a sports engagement component, with the president inaugurating the Thoddu Masters table tennis tournament. The event brought together national, regional and international champions, reflecting the administration's support for sport and community cohesion. Throughout the tour, President Morsi reiterated that direct engagement with citizens, attentiveness to grassroots concerns and collaborative governance remain central to his administration's policy framework. The president expressed the government's desire to also promote local tourism and reiterated the government's commitment towards it. However, he emphasized that there are principles that business operators must uphold and adhere to, including avoiding practices prohibited in Islam and that which are not deemed appropriate for the community. He advised businesses to operate within the bounds of Islamic principles and the laws of the Maldives, urging them to seek prosperity through means consistent with faith and local values. The president also shared a note he had received from a child during his visit to Ukuras, which raised concerns about activities unfamiliar to the community and its religion. The president warned that there is no benefit of infrastructural development without the cultivation of the mind and spirit. He pledged that the government would continue to support the sector while ensuring it aligns with Islamic tenets. The visit served not only as an operational review, but as a reaffirmation of the government's commitment to equitable development across the country. The president was accompanied by several ministers and senior officials from various government bodies. The government intensifies its efforts to document migrant workers residing within the country, with biometric data for 174,152 migrant workers now recorded in a centralized national database. The campaign, formally titled Operation Kurangi, is being led by the Ministry of Homeland Security and Technology and forms a cornerstone of the administration's strategy to address undocumented labor. Initiated on 2nd May 2024, the operation has targeted expatriate populations across a range of strategic locations, including the capital region of Male, designated industrial zones, and resort properties. The ministry has also implemented mechanisms to extend data collection to migrant communities across the country's inhabited islands and atolls. Biometric records compiled under the initiative include 10 fingerprint scans and facial photographs, enabling identity verification through facial recognition technology. Ministry sources report that the first phase of the operation is nearing completion, with the second phase already underway. According to government authorities, the operation is designed to provide a durable solution to the issue of undocumented migrant residency. The initiative seeks to determine whether foreign nationals are employed in accordance with Maldivian labor laws and immigration regulations, thereby reinforcing legal compliance across the workforce. The second phase of the operation is structured to offer legally employed individuals an opportunity to regularize their status. In addition to addressing the circumstances of current residents, this phase aims to strengthen the regulatory infrastructure governing the entry and employment of migrant workers, enhancing institutional oversight and procedural integrity. As part of its enforcement strategy, the ministry has begun restricting access to its systems for employers who have failed to update biometric records for their foreign employees. The ministry said, to date, 2,498 employers have been blocked due to non-compliance, according to official figures. The Homeland Security Ministry has affirmed its commitment to resolving the challenges posed by undocumented migrant labor. Operation Kurangi, along with its associated activities, is expected to culminate in a comprehensive resolution by April 2027. The Minister of Youth Empowerment, Information and Arts, Ibrahim Aswad, has revealed over 500 young apprentices have successfully graduated from the National Apprenticeship Program thus far. The program aims to equip youth with valuable skills and knowledge through expert training, enabling them to gain experience in various fields. Speaking during the closing ceremony of the National Apprenticeship Program and the Maldives Airports Company Limited MACL Hunavaru Apprenticeship Program, Minister Aswad highlighted the program as the flagship initiative to execute the ministry's youth empowerment and engagement mandate. The primary objective of the program, according to the minister, is develop and train the young workforce to reduce the need for expatriate workers in the Maldives. He said the program is not only aimed at creating employment opportunities, but it also helps to instill independence and the ability to develop new skills among young people, adding that more than 500 youths have been trained so far through national apprenticeship programs conducted throughout the country. Minister Aswad expressed confidence graduates from this program will go on to play an important role in increasing national productivity and contributing to economic growth. The minister said the cooperation between the government, local companies, and other sectors is essential to continue such programs, and these cooperations will provide such opportunities to many young people in the future. The Ministry of Higher Education, Labour and Skills Development, Dr. Ali Haider Ahmed, highlights the pivotal role of smart learning environments and smart campuses, describing them as cornerstones of educational digital transformation. Speaking at the Global Smart Education Conference 2025 in Beijing, China, Minister Dr. Haider emphasized the need to integrate intelligent educational technologies, promote innovation in pedagogy, leverage large models and intelligent agents, and enhance data-driven governance. These elements, he noted, are key to reshaping modern education and building adaptive, secure, and future-ready campuses. He said, moreover, the concept of a smart campus is not reserved only for students and teachers, but it is a system that will strengthen the management of the entire university and facilitate the optimum use of resources. He further explained, quote, "In all of this, the most important thing we need to remember is that technology is a tool. A smart campus should result in a comprehensive education, and through this education equip students with the skills they need for the job environment," unquote. Minister Dr. Haider said that making the smart campus vision a reality is an important national investment, adding that it will elevate the higher education sector in Maldives to international standards, thus enabling Maldivian students to compete on an equal footing with the rest of the world. The Ministry of Fisheries and Ocean Resources initiates a public tender for the lease of uninhabited islands, together with their surrounding lagoons and reefs, for aquaculture development, operation and maintenance. The announcement issued by the Fisheries Ministry forms part of a broader national agenda to modernize marine industries through targeted investment and regulatory reform. According to the Ministry's announcement, the initial lease term for the designated sites will be 21 years. While extensions may be granted in accordance with applicable legislation, the total lease period shall not exceed 50 years. Interested parties are required to submit proposals by 1 p.m. on 6 November. The Ministry has advised prospective bidders to undertake independent surveys of the proposed islands and isolated lagoons. A formal visit permit must be obtained prior to conducting any such study. However, the Ministry has clarified that the absence of a site inspection will not invalidate a bid. The tender coincides with a recent amendment to the aquaculture regulation originally promulgated in 2020, which governs aquaculture activities within the Maldives' maritime zones. The revised framework significantly broadens the scope of eligible areas extending beyond uninhabited islands to include lagoons and open ocean territories not administered by island councils. Under the updated regulation, leasing rights are now available to Maldivian citizens, sole proprietorships, foreign investment companies registered in the Maldives, and corporate societies. In a parallel development, the government recently formalized a cooperation agreement with India's Department of Fisheries, operating under the Ministry of Fisheries, Animal Husbandry and Dairying. The accord is designed to promote sustainable tuna fisheries and reinforce the governance of marine resources across the region. The Maldives Police Service has kickstarted a public awareness campaign ahead of the new Prevention of Gang and Other Serious Offences Act set to come into force next week. MPS said the program was launched jointly by the Male City Police and the Crime Prevention Unit, adding that it had already visited 138 shops to raise awareness on information on the new law, such as clarification of offences, possession of sharp objects or dangerous weapons, and prohibition of sale of knives to minors. It added, information was also shared on the penalties prescribed by law if convicted of such an offence, along with safety and security measures that can be taken to protect businesses and staff. According to MPS, its teams will prioritize shops, garages, and real estate offices in Male, Hurumale, and Vilimale during the program. The new statute formally defines offences related to gang activity and organized crime, introducing strict penalties while significantly broadening law enforcement authority. It establishes monitoring mechanisms for high-risk individuals and includes provisions to prevent the recruitment of minors into criminal organizations. Structuring its approach around prevention and enforcement, the law aims to dismantle entrenched networks and disrupt their operations. Under its provisions, law enforcement agencies are tasked with identifying gangs and individuals affiliated with them, a step intended to weaken criminal networks and limit their ability to operate. The legislation also authorizes the seizure of illicit assets linked to organized crime, criminalizing financial support for such groups. Law enforcement agencies have been granted expanded powers to conduct controlled deliveries and covert operations aimed at dismantling organized crime syndicates. The law explicitly criminalizes recruitment into organized crime with stiff penalties for those responsible. Alphabet's Google introduces a new lineup of Pixel smartphones and gadgets, intensifying its efforts to embed artificial intelligence across a wide ecosystem of products. The products were launched at the annual Made by Google event held in New York, which marked a return to more modest upgrade of its smartphones, smartwatches, and wireless earbuds compared to last year's event that industry analysts said was bigger and bolder than usual. New AI features rolling out with the Pixel 10 lineup include a coach in the camera app to help users to take better pictures and an assistant that displays relevant information without a user's explicit request, such as showing a flight confirmation email when they call an airline. The exteriors of the phones remain largely the same, though Google added a telephoto lens on the base model to bring it in line with the cameras on its pricier units. Prices starting at $799 for the base unit and $1,799 for the foldable model remain flat despite concerns earlier this year that some smartphones could experience drastic price hikes due to US tariffs. The Pixel 10, as well as the souped-up Pixel 10 Pro and Pixel 10 Pro XL, will be available later this month, while the Pixel 10 Pro Fold is slated to ship in October. All the Pixel phones are equipped with Google's latest mobile processor, Tensor G5, and for the first time feature a magnetic charging technology called Pixel Snap that is reminiscent of the MagSafe functionality on rival Apple's iPhones. Google unveiled a series of Pixel Snap chargers, cases, and phone stands to accompany the launch. Though Google develops the Android operating system underlying more than 80% of smartphones worldwide, its Pixel line generates a fraction of the sales of other firms selling Android-powered phones such as Samsung and Xiaomi. Google has so far limited its focus to the high-end market. Nearly three-quarters of Pixel shipments occurred in the United States, Japan, and UK, according to research firm IDC. Amid the generative AI boom, the company shifted the timing of its hardware event for the first time last year from its traditional autumn schedule to the summer, giving it a chance to preempt Apple in promoting AI integrations on smartphones. That has not yet translated to a material improvement in market share. For the second quarter, Google held 1.1% of the worldwide smartphone market, up from 0.91 year ago, according to IDC. In the United States, Pixel's biggest market in terms of shipments, the share slid to 4.3% from 4.5% in the same time period, according to IDC. Google announced new versions of its smartwatch, the Pixel Watch 4, and its cheaper Pixel Buds 2a wireless earbuds, though it left the Pixel Buds Pro 2 pets besides announcing a new color and an upcoming software update with device-specific upgrades. Hungary offers to host peace talks between Russia and Ukraine twice, and the offer still stands, Hungarian Foreign Minister Peter Szijjártó said in a podcast broadcast on Facebook. Szijjártó reacted to reports that the White House was eyeing the Hungarian capital, Budapest, as a venue for a possible trilateral meeting between US President Donald Trump, Russia's Vladimir Putin, and Ukraine's Volodymyr Zelensky. Politico reports the U.S. Secret Service was preparing for the summit in the Central European nation, with Budapest emerging as a first choice for the White House. Szijjártó said in a daily podcast hosting government members, quote, "If we are needed, we are ready to provide appropriately fair and safe conditions for such peace negotiations. We are pleased if we can contribute to the success of peace efforts," unquote. However, the foreign minister denied media reports, including by Reuters and Bloomberg, that U.S. President Donald Trump called Hungarian Prime Minister Viktor Orbán to talk about Ukraine's European Union accession after 18th August summit with Ukraine's president and European leaders. A White House official had said that Trump and Orban spoke on 18th of August regarding Ukraine's talks with the European Union about joining the bloc and also discussed the possibility of Budapest serving as a host for talks between Putin and Zelensky. The UN Human Rights Office says that Israel is letting some supplies into the Gaza Strip, but not enough to avert widespread starvation. UN Human Rights Office spokesperson Tamim Al-Khitan told a Geneva press briefing said, quote, "In the past few weeks, Israeli authorities have only allowed aid to enter in quantities that remain far below what would be required to avert widespread starvation." Unquote. He added that the risk of starvation in Gaza was a direct result of the Israeli government's policy of blocking humanitarian aid. Israel's military agency that coordinates aid, COGAT, said Israel invests considerable efforts in aid distribution to Gaza. He added Al-Khitan said his office had documented the killings of 1,857 Palestinians seeking aid in Gaza since May 27th, most of which appear to have been committed by the Israeli military. He said 1,021 had been killed near sites operated by the US-backed Gaza Humanitarian Foundation, while a further 836 had been killed on supply truck routes. Israel denies responsibility for hunger in Gaza, accusing Hamas of stealing aid. It says it has taken steps to increase deliveries, including pausing fighting for parts of the day in some areas and announcing protected routes for aid convoys. It has occasionally acknowledged troops opening fire near aid sites while blaming militants for provoking the violence. More than 61,000 Palestinians have since been killed in Israel's ensuing air and ground war in Gaza, according to local health officials who do not distinguish between fighters and non-combatants. Irish-bred horse Obsman clinches victory at the Judd Bond International Stakes at York Racecourse. The 4-year-old bay colt ridden by jockey William Buick was the firm favorite going into the race. The race began with the 151 outsider Burr Castle, ridden by Robert Havlin and acting as a pacemaker for his stablemate Ombudsman, immediately charging into a large lead with the chasing pack, including the favorite Ombudsman initially content to hold back. As the horses approached the final furlong, Ombudsman and his primary rival Delacroix began to close the gap, ultimately piping Burr Castle to the top 2 spots with a slowing Burr Castle setting for third. Ombudsman's win sets his record to an incredible 6 wins from his previous 8 races, stretching back to June 2024 while finishing as runner-up in the other 2. In a village on the outskirts of Beijing, workers shoveled thick mud from a front loader, part of a massive cleanup effort after torrential rain triggered devastating floods across northern China last month. Among the debris stood 64-year-old Ma Guixia, whose village home in Huairou district was severely damaged. She watched as workers removed a flood-soaked quilt from her house, now caked in mud and nearly unrecognizable. Beijing's mountainous northern Huairou district and neighboring Miyun district received a year's worth of rain in a single week, triggering flash floods that devastated entire villages and killed 44 people in the deadliest flood since 2012. The authorities' most serious weather warning came too late for most villagers in Huairou who were already asleep by the time it was issued. Ma, born and raised in the village, pointed to her injured knee and wiped away tears as she recalled the chaos. The floods exposed weaknesses in the rural emergency response infrastructure for Beijing, whose urban core is surrounded by several rural districts. But they also revealed how historically dry Beijing, home to 22 million people, remains insufficiently prepared for what experts say will be an increasingly wet future. The Chinese capital has experienced 3 deluges since 2012 that forecasters said could only happen once every 100 years, and climate experts warn there is a growing risk of disasters on a previously unthinkable scale. Mid-July is typically when northern China's rainy season starts, but this year it has had its earliest start since records began in 1961, while several Beijing rivers experienced their largest ever recorded floods. Official data showed citywide rainfall in June and July surged 75% from a year earlier. Chinese experts are increasingly calling for city planners to prioritize ecological resilience given the disastrous effects of climate change. China's ministries of housing and environment did not respond to FACT's requests for comment. To combat urban flooding, China began building sponge cities in 2015 to transform concrete-laden megacities with hidden drainage infrastructure such as permeable asphalt pavements, sunken rain gardens, and modernized sewage systems. In Beijing, new sponge city projects have begun this year. Media reports say currently 38% of Beijing's urban areas meet sponge city standards, but experts say sponge cities cannot help in Beijing's rural fringes because the mountainous landscape makes villagers, usually built at the foot of the steep hillsides and lacking emergency response infrastructure, more vulnerable to secondary disasters such as landslides. And that's all we have for now. Thank you for watching. Wish you all a pleasant day ahead.